Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. Today we're going to completely demystify two foundational grammar concepts from Unit 7. We're taking a look at the invisible architecture behind how we communicate our everyday actions to others, and on the flip side, how we describe the ways we experience the world around us. By the end of this, you'll have a crystal clear understanding of how to easily structure your sentences for both outward communication and inward perception. Let's get into it.
Okay, let's dive into this roadmap. First up, communicating with two objects, direct versus indirect objects, and common double object verbs. After that, we'll look at engaging the five senses, using sensory verbs correctly, and finally, grammar and everyday life.
Section 1. Communicating with two objects. So, let's kick off the first half of our journey, focusing entirely on how we talk about doing things for or to other people. Take a look at the image on screen. You've got someone texting on a smartphone and an inbox with an unread email. These are actions we perform, dozens of times a day? But to accurately describe these actions, like sending a message or writing an email, we actually require highly specific grammatical structures to make complete sense. You see, you aren't just sending, you are sending something to someone.
But before we look at a full sentence, we really need to clearly define the two types of objects in play here, just so you can visually grasp the difference. The direct object is the what. It's the thing being directly acted upon. The indirect object, on the other hand, is the who. It's the recipient of that. Actually, scratch that. It's the person receiving that thing. So the absolute crucial point to remember is that the direct object is the item being transferred, and the indirect object is the lucky or maybe unlucky person receiving it.
Section 2. Direct versus indirect objects.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how we can visualize these two distinct concepts sitting right next to each other inside a sentence block. Notice the spatial separation we've laid out here, kind of like an equation on a whiteboard. Look at the formula. Subject plus verb followed by the indirect object and ending with the direct object. I sent Mike an email. See exactly where the recipient, Mike, sits? He's sandwiched right between the action of sending and the item being sent, which is the email. Same with my parents bought me a smartphone. Me is the recipient, a smartphone is the direct object.
Let's look at how this really builds our understanding of clarity. On the left side, we have I sent an email. Now that's perfectly fine grammatically. But notice how on the right side, by adding the indirect object Mike, the entire flow changes. It immediately clarifies exactly who is receiving the action without needing to tack on extra phrases like to Mike at the very end of the sentence. Honestly, it's just an incredibly efficient way to communicate.
Section 3. Common double object verbs.
However, there is a catch. Not all verbs can take two objects. I mean, you can't sleep someone an email, right? So we need to identify the common verbs we use every single day that fit this exact pattern. Here's a rapid-fire review of the verbs from the source material that naturally take both an indirect and a direct object. Send, buy, write, find, fax, and give. What do they all have in common? Well, they all inherently involve a transfer. You're giving something, communicating something, or finding something for someone. Whenever you use these verbs, your brain should automatically be looking for the who and the what.
To show a real-world, maybe slightly impatient application of this, check out this quote from the Unit 7 conversation exercise. Ken says, "Hey, Chris, I sent you an email yesterday and you didn't answer. I is the subject, sent is the verb, you is the indirect object, and an email is the direct object." Boom! It's the exact formula we just learned, being used to confront a friend who owes him $15.
Section 4. Engaging the five senses.
Okay, so we've totally mastered outbound communication. Now let's pivot internally to how we experience the world around us. And this brilliantly illustrates exactly what I mean. Take a moment to look at this vibrant scene from a busy market in Phon Savan, Laos. Imagine just walking down that aisle. Think about the incredible variety of inputs your brain is processing all at once. Sizzling grills, colorful dishes, the chatter of vendors, the heat of the day. To describe environments this rich, we need a very specific set of verbs.
And here they are. These are the 5 key sensory verbs in the simple present tense: looks, sounds, tastes, smells, and feels. They literally act as the bridge between the physical world out there and your internal perception of it.
Section 5. Using sensory verbs correctly.
Just like the double object verbs we looked at earlier, sensory verbs have their own simple mathematical formula. Let's break it down on the board here. Subject plus sensory verb plus adjective. That car looks very old. The CD player sounds terrible. This sweater feels soft. Notice a major difference here compared to our previous verbs. The subject isn't doing an action to an object, not at all. Instead, the sensory verb is linking the subject directly to an adjective that describes its qualities. We are describing a state of being based entirely on our perception.
And this dynamic plays out hilariously in one of the source conversations. Bill and Susan are debating whether some milk has gone bad. Bill says, it doesn't smell too bad. Then he tries it and immediately corrects himself, ugh, you're right, it tastes awful. This just perfectly shows how immediate and relatable sensory verbs are in everyday life. You use them instantly to categorize your experiences. In this case, an incredibly unfortunate experience with spoiled milk.
So, this brings up a fun little challenge for you as you're following along. How do we actually describe the things we perceive? Like, which adjectives logically pair best with which of our 5 senses? I mean, you definitely wouldn't say a sweater sounds soft, would you? Here's a rapid-fire list of the descriptive adjectives used in the source exercises to really reinforce this pattern. Old pairs perfectly with looks. Terrible pairs with sounds when you're dealing with, say, a broken CD player. Food is delicious or salty, linking right back to tastes. Soft belongs to feels. A new haircut. That looks great. Matching the right descriptive adjective to the appropriate sensory verb is absolutely crucial for painting a clear picture for your listener. Section 6. Grammar in everyday life.
As we bring this explainer to a close, it's time to connect both halves of our journey right back to your own daily routine. Look at these 2 images side by side. Whether you're firing off a quick text to a friend, which, remember, requires understanding your direct and indirect objects, or you're walking through a local market smelling delicious food, which requires your sensory verbs and adjectives, these grammar rules are fundamentally the invisible architecture of our lives. They are the essential frameworks that allow us to share our intentions, our actions, and our experiences with the whole world.
So, I want to leave you with this provocative thought. Using the exact formulas we learned today, how would you describe the very last text message you sent? Who was the indirect object? And how would you describe the last meal you ate using a sensory verb and an adjective? Did it taste delicious or awful? Take a quick moment right now to apply what you've learned. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep practicing these structures out there in the wild. Catch you next time.